Hello everyone. You're here with Dr. Perry Kyles. See if I can get myself. There I am. Hello everybody. You're here with Dr. Perry Kyles. Uh, looks like we're just getting started. We're just getting started here. So I want to go ahead and just kind of take my time getting started. Give folks an opportunity to come on in. Okay, family. Let's see, let's try it again. All right, there we are. There's an important link right there in the comment section, in the comment box. So let's go ahead and get started. Why are we here today? Again, I'm Dr. Perry Kyles. I am a historian. I am a PhD. I got my doctorate at an accredited university, Florida International University. I didn't buy it online. I didn't know somebody. I earned a doctorate in history. I specialized in African diaspora history, and I had an outside area in economics, which really, I took courses in the economics department, but I also took courses in the history department in economic history and business history. So why are we here today? We're here today, because one day I was on YouTube and I saw an interview going on. And it was an interview by a man the one who I know, named Godfrey. I know Godfrey. I know who he is. And I saw he hosts a show called 154 Podcast. And on 154 Podcast, the show that he was hosting, he was talking to a man by the name of Bassem Youssef. And Bassem Youssef is an Egyptian. And this Egyptian, Bassem Youssef, he's a very well-known Egyptian. He is known for social commentary in Egypt. Now, his commentary ended up getting him into some trouble in Egypt. And the end result was that he left America, but he's trained as a medical doctor, and he's trained as a medical doctor, but he was very well known for political commentary. Now this is important because he doesn't have a background in history. He doesn't have a background in Egyptology. Doesn't have a background in archaeology. But one interesting thing about Egyptians is that Egyptians, when it comes to the story of ancient Kemet, all of a sudden every single Egyptian becomes an expert. He or she becomes a chematologist or an Egyptologist overnight. So I was watching this interview and the subject of Kemet came up. So I said, well, I want to comment on this. I wasn't really in the position to bring it up live on my computer and comment on it on social media. So I said what I'll do is I'll come back later at a different time and comment on it. And that different time is today. So what we're about to see is 154 Podcast. So keep in mind that name, 154. there are 54 countries of Africa. So this podcast is of Godfrey and Akbar, and they are Nigerians. Their last names are difficult for me to pronounce, so I had to write them down. So it's Godfrey Danchima and Akbar Bajabiyamila. Bajabiyamila, that's his last name. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring them up on the screen. All right. And I wish I could take my logo off there, but really this is my first time doing one of these, and I'm not very adept, and that's why you see it on the screen. I'm not trying to steal credit. But again, this is 154 podcast with Akbar and Godfrey. They're interviewing Bassem Youssef, who is a popular Egyptian, but all three of these Africans here on the 154 podcast now live in America. And on his interviews, you'll see Godfrey and Akbar interviewing other Africans, but it looks like all of the Africans that they're interviewing are in America. So I have seen maybe 1 minute of this, which made me realize that this is worth commenting on. I'm certain I will have a lot to say about this. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is about 37 minutes into the interview.
I want to talk about the pyramids, pharaohs, the gods, goddesses of Egypt. Let's start with the pyramids. I've been to the Pyramid Giza, had a chance to go inside of the Pyramid Giza. I didn't realize how small the opening was at 6'6". I'm like, dang, I got to kind of squeeze my way through here. I was kind of surprised by that. But there's all these conversations on who built the pyramids. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Who the hell built the pyramids?
Aliens.
I love aliens.
Well, here's the thing. If pyramids were built by white people, if the pyramids were in Scandinavia, nobody would have doubt. It was like, oh, maybe it's the aliens. I don't know. We don't trust the abilities of these Egyptians.
Right.
Nobody would say that.
Right.
But it seems for some reason, like we are the only culture that everybody is claiming it's theirs.
Wow.
The Jews said, look, we built the pyramids, get the out. They were not even there when the pyramids were built. Well, archaeologically and historically, people build their impression about history by a cartoon called...
All right, so let's go ahead. I have to start right there. He's right. The Jews did say they built the pyramids, and they said they built the pyramids as slaves. And he's saying, and Yusuf here is saying, well, they weren't there when the pyramids were built. But here's the thing. We might as well get into it right now. Neither were the Arabs. The Arabs completed their colonization of Egypt in 639, Common Era CE. But these pyramids, depending on which date you choose, they were either built 3,000 years before that, or they were built 500 years before that. So this guy, Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian who's probably an Arab, his people come 639. Some people argue that the pyramids are built 2,500 BC. Other people argue that they're built 4,500 BC. All this to say, if you hear what he just said, he's telling the Jews, get the fuck out of here. You weren't even there when the pyramids were built. Well, with that being the case, by that same logic, we have to tell Yusuf here and the other people who make, the other Egyptians, modern Egyptians who make this same claim, we have to tell them, get the fuck out of here. So let's keep going.
The Prince of Egypt was directed by Steven Spielberg, so everybody thought like, oh my God, we built the pyramids. They didn't, all right? Some other people say, well, it's the aliens. All right, okay, good luck. At least the aliens chose us. So, and then there is this whole thing about the Afrocentric thing, with all due respect. You know, this whole thing, people trying to claim that the pyramids were built by an African culture, and then we as Arabs came as invaders. This is very...
All right, so before he makes this point, I want to say something else. This is what he really wanted to get to. He went around with the aliens and the Jews because he really wanted to get to this part right here. So I will give you a little bit of insight into the Egyptian mindset, the modern Egyptian mindset when it comes to blacks or when it comes to Africans. The Arab culture is very racist against blacks. They will say that they're not, but it's a lie. It's a lie. And I live in Egypt. There are the neighborhood where I live. I like and appreciate these people, but this group, he's from an educated class of Egyptians, and when it comes to this topic, it's like they think that their story is convincing, but it's not convincing at all. But just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, like let's say someone like myself, an Egyptian may get to know me, and they may say, if they like me, what will they say? They'll say, you have black skin, but a white heart. And we're talking 2026. They'll say this. You have black skin, but a white heart. Why are they saying that? Because they're white supremacists. I'm not saying they have pitchforks and masks. I'm saying in their heart, in their mind, in their educational and socializational system, they preach and teach white supremacy. Their stone that they have to touch at Mecca, the Kaaba, right? Black stone. And they say it's black because it's filled with sin. I could go on. There's so much more I could say right now, but let's let him go on. I just had to give you a little bit of background of where Youssef is headed here.
Dangerous, and it's very wrong. First of all, Western African culture are extremely rich. They have you have an incredible history. You have, for example, you have the Kingdom of Mali, which is one of the richest kingdoms in history. The fact that people would claim other cultures as theirs and then consider other people as invaders, it is insulting, and it is kind of like, you know, it's factually and historically not true. And I believe that there is a lot in the African culture and the African history that they can be proud of, instead of trying to get or claim some other cultures as theirs.
So so Egypt is not African?
No.
It's in Africa.
No, we are in Africa. So I am everything. I'm African, I'm Arab, I'm Muslim, I'm Coptic. I am a product of all of these things. I do not claim a purity of race or purity of genetics. People who live there now are a product of a sequence of very rich civilizations that came, whether from the pharaohs to the Romans to the Arabs to the Christians, all of that. We're as a product. But now it becomes this whole thing about, there's like this whole new wave of discussion calling us the people who live in Egypt as invaders, as people stealing the history of other people. That I completely reject.
You think it's a combination of people that built?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Egypt, for example, have you been to Cairo? Have you went down to Aswan or Luxor?
No, I didn't to Luxor. But
you will find like
All right, so I want to go ahead and say this. I want to say it now because I don't want to forget. But he's making the argument that he's saying we, as in the Egyptian. But this word Egyptian did not even exist until the Greeks came to Egypt. It's even that word Egypt is a corruption of the Egyptos, which is the Greek word. Now, what happens before the Greeks come to Egypt, the pyramids had already been built, either 4,000 years or a little bit over 2,000 years, depending on either of those numbers that are chosen. So he's trying to make an argument. Oh well, I'm Coptic, I'm Muslim, I'm this, I'm that, but these Coptics, as well as these Muslims, all of these people, you notice he left out the Turks, right? All of these people, none of them were there. None of them existed when the pyramids were built and when Kemet existed. So if you've ever been to Egypt, if you've ever interacted with an Egyptian, one thing that they don't know, and I don't debate a lot with them because I don't want them to learn this, their bullshit is horrible. They have the worst bullshit out of any people I've ever met in my life. When they try to manipulate you, when they are so unconvincing. And what he's doing, he is trying to take advantage of other people's ignorance. Who don't know, well, the Arabs came so much later. Even the Coptics came into existence so much later, but even the Coptics were there long before the Arabs came. In fact, the Christians originated in Egypt. The oldest Christian religions was in Egypt. And you see continuity between the ancient Kemetic beliefs and the Gnostic Christians. The whole idea of a person having divine potential. The whole idea of harmony between masculine and feminine. Those are Gnostic Christian ideals, and they got them from the ancient Kemetic people. So what he's saying is that, oh, well, we're a mixture. We're this and we're that. But yeah, you modern Egyptians are, yes, you do have some ancient Kemetic blood, but you're contemptuous of that black blood. They have the skin lightening cream here, just like they do in every other place that's been colonized. So, and I'll say a little bit more about that, but let's just hear a little bit more of his BS.
Egypt is so diverse. You will find people with a little bit fair skin like me, and you have people as dark as you down in the south, like the Nubians.
That's never portrayed, though. I'd never really see that portrayed.
They never show Nubians. They show like
as far as like
white people.
Because I know the Nubians are more south, right?
Show them where.
Whether it's cartoons or whether or
just
even
the imagery that we
movies,
get. The imagery that we get.
Movies, which movies?
Ten Commandments.
Yeah, but that's not our.
We thought Charlton Heston was Moses.
But that's the problem of trying to understand a culture through basically entertainment,
media,
because entertainment is not true.
Yeah.
And for example, you have President Sadat, who's like
Anwar Sadat.
Yeah, you see,
he was like a black guy.
Yeah. Look, so with this whole thing about trying to turn whatever's happened in Egypt history as white versus left, that is not our thing. This is the white versus left is like an American thing. They are trying to impose a discussion or a conflict that we don't have anything to do with,
like a Western ideology,
and projected on some. At that time, this area, Libya and Egypt and Algeria and Sudan and
Morocco,
all of these areas, these were like people with different backgrounds who moved around, and then at a certain time there was a timeline where they drew a line and people settled there, right? But the fact that you try to go and try to claim someone's history as theirs. You know, if Nigeria, West Africa has a very rich history. If someone suddenly from Europe started to claim your heritage, you'd be offended.
Well, they
right?
did.
Yeah, and they.
All right, so this guy, now, like I said early on, he doesn't have training in chematology or anything like that, or in Egyptology, but I think really my honest opinion is that he's just outright lying. And the reason, like, I'll give you an example. He said, oh, well, Libya and Sudan and the people were moving around. Here's what happened. When the Arabs came, well, even before the Arabs came, when Persians came, and these different people from the Middle East, when they came to Egypt to colonize Egypt, those ancient Kemetic people, they moved to the area of Nubia, of Aswan, and even further south into what is today Sudan. But here's an interesting fact, and he's glossing over this. The Sudanese, when those Kemetic people moved into what is today Sudan, these folks fought off all of the Middle Eastern invaders. They fought off the Roman invaders. And now you see in Sudan, you see a civil war, a government against so-called rebels. But here, just 2.5 years ago, these rebels and this government were one, and they are Arab dominated. These Arabs did not come into Sudan and become dominant until 1897. Now, it might be the year 1900. I think I'm right when I say 1897. But I can say with certainty that it was between 1897 and 1901. The Arabs came into Sudan, and, well, I should say the British. So that army that came into Sudan and took over in 1897, it was an Arab and British army. The British were in control, of course, because the British colonized Egypt. And then they created an army and also used Egyptian conscripts in that army. And that is how Sudan became Arab, right? So he's very disingenuous, very, very dishonest. And he's continuously saying, okay, well, the West Africans, they have a glorious history to be proud of. But by the same token, so do the Arabs, maybe, right? Your own history in Arabia, wherever all of you guys came from before you came into Egypt, perhaps that's something to be proud of. I mean, you all fought against the wicked Catholic Church for hundreds of years. That's really something to be proud of during the Crusades. But you trying to pretend like your people, these Turks and these Arab Egyptians, trying to pretend like you all were not colonizers to Egypt, is an outright lie. Now, yes, he's right. West Africa has a lot to be proud of. Anybody who knows their own history knows that there's things in their history to be proud of and things that exist that are not to be proud of, right? But he wants to paint a picture, whereas this modern Egyptian is linked with the Egyptian of antiquity, with the Egyptian of the Kemetic days. And he's basically lying through his teeth. And I'll give you a little bit more later as to what's going on and why they're doing this.
And then they stole it. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's my issue.
So this is me admitting my ignorance because I don't know, and I've often wondered about this. What are the indigenous people of Northern Africa, from Morocco to Algeria, Libya, Egypt? Who are the indigenous people? And I ask that because when you look south of the Sahara, right, and you see everyone, there's some sort of a tonal,
Yes.
type of, connection. But then when you go to North Africa, there is this variety that you talk about, right?
More
and
Arab.
more Arab. Were there ever like an indigenous,
I mean, the indigenous people of today were basically, they are the indigenous people who have been living there. Because,
We trying to say, was it the brothers first?
No,
Was
no.
it black, man? Just trying to get right
Well,
to the point, man. Was it black? Were we there first?
he said it. He
No,
said
man,
what I was
keep it
like,
real, man. Well, the brothers was there first, man. He was building the pyramid, and the Arabs said, hey, man.
This guy Akbar played in the NFL. He's 6'6", and he's too craven to say, was it black first? Now you heard what Bassem Youssef said. He said, well, the people who are there now are the people who have always been there. He is denying the Arab immigration to Egypt. Everybody in the world knows this. And you see Akbar here, he says, oh, well, I'm so ignorant. And then Godfrey says something. And he said, oh, well, that's what I'm trying to say. One thing I notice about blacks, and not just that, continental Africans, even though they have it the worst, they can be 6'3", right? 1 gazillion pounds, and they'll still be craven and kind of cowardly and afraid to speak, afraid to appear as confrontational when they're talking to somebody that's not black. I see this all the time. I see it in the workplace. I just see it in so many arenas. That socialization from colonization and slavery and all of that, it really, that culture that emerged, that Christian culture that emerged, and that Muslim culture that emerged in America, in the Caribbean, in Africa, in South America, and also in places like Vietnam and Philippines. Those people are so cowardly when it comes to speaking directly or appearing confrontational to a white or an Arab. It's disgusting. But Bassem Youssef, he's saying that the people who are there now are the people who have always been there. No. If you go to Aswan today, you can clearly see how black those people are, in contrast to the people that you see in Giza, or the people that you see in Cairo. In fact, it's a progression. In the northern part, you can see the skin is lighter, even lighter in Alexandria, in the Mediterranean. Then there's Giza in Cairo, light skin for the most part, but you can still see their African blood, and their skin is a little bit swarthy and they have very curly hair. You can still see some of that original Egyptian blood. Then when you go to Luxor, they get even darker. They're fairly dark skinned, even though they're rabid Muslims, right? I mean, they are, their matrix is Arab Islam. And then finally, when you get down to Aswan, then you can say, oh, yeah, well, these people were obviously black. Like, for example, the border between Sudan and Egypt, they moved that border. They moved that border and moved Abu Simbel, created that lake, Lake Nasser, which is a gigantic man-made lake, and they moved the border to take part of what was Sudan away and make it become Egypt. And all of this is very well documented. So when Bassem, when he says the people who are there now are the people who have always been there, no, this is not true. In fact, when the Arabs came, they told the Coptics and the indigenous people and all of that, hey, you can stay here. We're going to tax the shit out of you. And if you convert to Islam, now we won't tax you. All documented. So why are they doing this? I keep telling you I'm going to tell you later. It's because I am. So let's listen to it a little bit more.
And that's our. We was like, nah, man, we trying to build some triangles. Here you come with this bullshit. And you coming in, man, brothers, he want to know, was it black? Man, was brothers in there like, what's up, king? All right, Pharaoh, what's going on? Who these motherfuckers? Some Arab motherfuckers. Well, I don't know.
You see, this is what happens when you watch too much entertainment. Pyramids built by rappers, dude. Anyway, no. So to ask you questions. So, for example, in North Africa, for example, you have Morocco and in Algeria, you have like the Berber living there,
The Berber,
and the Amazigh. In Egypt, there was a mixture of so many cultures that accumulated over the years. So it was always been the Egyptians who were
there for like?
we call them now Copts. We call
How are you spelling that?
we call we are like
Coptic,
the Coptic.
C-O-P-T-I-C.
Coptic doesn't mean Christian, but it's just the people who've been living there.
What do they
Also,
look
the
like?
pharaohs, like no.
They look like you?
No, not with blue eyes. Blue eyes, I think this was an addition.
So they look like you. So they were
But you
looking
cannot
like
really,
us.
you cannot really say what does an Egyptian look like, because I can show you like a palette of different Egyptian faces and skin color. It is
But what
very
about the
diverse.
characteristics? Is one of the controversial things, and we've seen this with I Show Speed,
The nose.
where we looked at the nose. Like when you look at features and you see, okay, why were the noses
Sphinx.
on the Sphinx blown off? You know, like what was that? And then a lot of this, there are other statues where the nose were removed.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Okay. So these are two different reasons.
Yeah.
The nose from the Sphinx was blown off because there was like a radical guy who thought that in order for people to not go back and worship idols, so I'm gonna cut their nose. Many of the noses that were smitten, these were like when the Christians took over parts of Egypt, the radical Christians, and they started to kind of do it's kind of like an insult, a kind of like a rebellion against like the old religion. So it's really different. It's not about like changing them, and also even the nose that you're talking about.
When I began watching this video with you all, I did not know that this guy Bassem Youssef was going to be lying this hard. It wasn't the Christians who shot the nose and disfigured the noses. It was the Arabs. When he said there was a radical guy, that radical guy was an Arab Muslim, and there were several of them. It's documented. The radicals who disfigured ancient Egyptian / Kemetic monuments were not the ancients. Were not the Coptics. He's just lying on the Coptics. He's just lying on the Christians. In the post-Kemet era, the closest thing to an ancient Egyptian is a Copt. And he's just outright lying on them, saying that they're the ones who disfigured the noses. When everybody knows it was the ancient Egypt, it was the Arabs. There were things that the Arabs didn't like about the ancient Egyptian monuments and statues. One, they were black, and they hated black. Now, someone might say, well, they were racist against black back then. Yes, and there's evidence of it. Now, if you can look this up. There's a man named Al-Jahiz, a black man, Al-Jahiz, Al-Jahiz, Al-Jahiz. And Al-Jahiz wrote in the 9th century Common Era. He was an Iraqi. He's black. And he wrote a book called The Glory of the Blacks. In this book, today it has different names: Glory of the Blacks, Glory of the Blacks over the Whites. And his objective was not to say that the blacks were superior to the whites, or the black Muslims or the black Iraqis were superior to the whites. That was not his objective at all. His objective was to say that the anti-black bigotry, the anti-black racism of the Arabs is misguided. So wherever you find anti-blackness, you also find the whole idea of white supremacy. So, for example, El-Jahi said, well, if what you believe is true, if the whites are superior, then why aren't the lepers the most excellent of people? I paraphrase that quote just a little bit, but in the 9th century Common Era, the black Iraqi, Islam, a Muslim, is railing against bigotry, anti-black bigotry. That anti-blackness is a core, it's an essential part of Arab Islam. And so even El-Jahiz commented on this in the 9th century AD. So this guy, he's not being truthful as to why they disfigured the noses. Now here's something else pretty interesting. When you go to Luxor Temple and you see the monument, you see that the statues of the women are desecrated to a much higher degree. So these people, not only were they anti-black, they were extremely misogynistic. All of the things that you see going on right now, all of the misogyny that exists in the Arab world right now, do you think that it originated here throughout the 21st or the 20th century? No. It has been that way for hundreds of years. So this guy, Bassem, is one of the biggest liars I've ever heard in my life. And he's sitting up here lying in these Africans' face. Now what's interesting, another thing, and I'll go ahead and say this right now. I'll just go ahead. I'll just go ahead and get back to it.
About you will find like completely different noses. Like the nose of Nefertiti is different from a nose of like someone who's like Ramesses. You will have like different. It's like it's very that's why you're trying to box Egyptians in looking a certain way. If you look at the archaeological paintings for Egyptians in mid-Egypt, it will be different from Alexandria. It will be different from Upper Egypt or Southern Egypt. So all through those years, even when the Arabs came, they didn't come and replace them. The Arabs came with a very small army. They settled down and just mingled with the same people, like the same way that the Greeks came in and intermingled with the Egyptians. Same with the Romans came in and intermingled with the Egyptians. There were always like a core population that was living there. And since we have been there for like 7,000 years, all of these waves of invasions and changing of administrations.
Okay, we have been there for 7,000 years? No. The Arabs, like I said, the Arabs colonized 639. The Turks came in. Ali Pasha in the 19th century. Ali Pasha, right? In like 1854 or something like that. Turks. So he said, we have been there for 7,000 years. No. Your bloodline, your blue-eyed Turkish Arab bloodline has not been there for 7,000 years. So I want to go ahead right now, and I'm just going to go ahead and explain to you why I think this is why I think that this is happening. See, for ages, well, not ages, for hundreds of years, these Arabs were not interested in Kemet. Why do you think it is you, from the time 1798, from the time that the French came into Egypt, and after that, why do you think that they keep saying, oh, these Faulkner found this, Reisner discovered this monument on the Giza Plateau, Mers Ankh, or something like that. The Sphinx was discovered or rediscovered during this time, or something like. Why are these things constantly taking place? Like the Luxor Temple, it was under the sand. The Sphinx under the sand. So many things under the sand are desecrated. Why? Because these Arabs couldn't care less. These Arabs couldn't care less about the ancient monuments. They desecrated them. They built churches on top of them. You mean to tell me, like, if you go into the Luxor Temple in Luxor, and you go into the holy of holies, the most sacred part of the ancient Egyptian temple, and you go in there, you can see where they've written all kind of stuff on it. You can see where they used to keep the camels in there. There was nothing sacred about this to them. If that was them in antiquity, then why did they desecrate everything so harshly to such an extent? It's because it wasn't them. They were not there. So Yusuf Bassem, I don't think in his case it's just a matter of ignorance. I think he's just an outright liar. But like I said, but getting back to why they're doing this now, for Egypt right now is really having a difficult economic time. I think they owe more money to the IMF than anybody else. It's either they owe more money or the ratio of what they own compared to their gross domestic product is the most. So they are trying everything they can. From 1958 until 1971, what was the name of this country that's calling itself Egypt today? The United Arab Republic. The name of this country was the United Arab Republic. They were linking themselves to Egypt or Kemet. What is they were United Arab Republic, united with Syria as one country, but Syria left them in 1971. Then what became the name of their country? Arab Republic of Egypt. Arab Republic of Egypt. If they were tied to the people of antiquity, why not put Kemet in the name? That's what they call them. That's what they called themselves back in the days of antiquity. They called their country Kemet, which means the black state or the black country. It doesn't mean the black land. Why didn't they put that in the name? But even to this day, the name of this country is the Arab Republic of Egypt. Now, up until earlier this year, if you go to any of the monuments of Egypt, those monuments had one price for Egyptians, one price for Arabs. Okay, looks like we're back. Looks like we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, see, Brother Taharka in the house. Taharka, sorry I missed your commentary. Okay, so I'll go ahead. I'm going to read. Look like Tahak has made a few comments. He said, why are we limited? Why are we limited modern Egyptian to Arabs? Okay, why are we limited modern Egyptians to Arabs? So I guess he's asking why are modern Egyptians limited to Arabs, something like that. There are plenty of black Egyptians there. Many will say they are Arabs, but many will tell you they are the original black Egyptians. Now, what he's saying, what he's talking about, these were people, probably people that he met in Aswan. So, Tarki, the people who told you this, were they in Aswan? So also he goes on, also the ancient Egyptians of Kemet, Kemet, tell you where they are from, and they don't claim nowhere in Asia, and that included Arabia, which was originally black and Ethiopian. Okay, so we'll go down a little bit further, see what else. Okay, Tahaka Nagas. Now, what should be said time he mentioned Mali was Cheikante joke. Okay. But in order for Cheikante joke to be mentioned, that means Akbar and Godfrey have to know that. And you can tell it sounds like they have a full box of rocks in their heads. Okay, Nagas also says another thing that must be mentioned, that oppressed are usually confused about their history, and that includes black Egyptians. Oh, here comes this bum. Hey, Taharka, this guy's a bum. It's some Egyptian. This guy here, you can tell, talk about box of rocks. This guy is truly as dumb as a box of rocks. But like I told you, they're not really dumb. They're just dishonest. They're deceitful. He said, Arab is only a modern linguistic political terminology. Arab is only a... See what I'm saying? It's always the smoke and mirrors with these guys. Always, it is like Senegal and Cameroon, blah, blah, blah. Based on genetic, yeah, so this guy here this guy's full of dookie. We'll block Mo ass. He's an idiot. And I'm saying that not just because of what he's saying here. He's commented on so many of my posts. And the thing he says is so asinine, so dishonest and disingenuous. So anyway, I don't know if we're able to bring the video back. Are we able to bring the video back? No, looks like we're not able to bring the video back. Well, which is perfectly fine. You all get the gist. You all get the gist of where I was going with all of this. So, just to kind of bring it home, because of their current financial situation. Hey, what's up, Sis-in-law? Because of what's going on, because of their economic situation, they are they don't want to give up any dime that they have. They need all the money they can get. 15% of the economy is based on tourism. So they're trying to get more money out of tourism, which is why they are no longer giving the discounts to the Arabs from other countries. So what we're seeing is, because of that one other thing, they're really trying to, they see their number one challenger to them trying to claim, all of a sudden claim this ancient Egyptian identity, their number one threat are the Black Americans. The Black Americans who have been claiming ancient Egypt since, like, for example, in the 1820s, there was a man named David Walker, who wrote about the ancient Egyptians and wrote about them positively. All throughout the 19th century, throughout the 20th century, going into this 21st century, Black Americans and many blacks in other parts of Africa and the Caribbean have spoken positively about ancient Egypt. But the modern Egyptian, he wants to claim this identity as if it's always been a part of his history and that he's always been a part of it. And the number one obstacle to that is the blacks. And I mentioned earlier that they are really contemptuous of black. So Tarka Nagas says, yes, I was told in Aswan by a black Egyptian that he is not Nubian, but a black Egyptian that has been there before the Greeks are Arabs. Looks like Taharka Nagas on that image, looks like he doesn't have a shirt on, I don't know. But here's his comment. And Aswani told him that they were the ancients, which we all know to be true. But here's the thing. What this current situation reminds me of is the golden rule. The golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And right now, the Arab is in possession of the land. And so therefore, they're able to control the narrative more so than anybody else. But they do feel very threatened by Black Americans. I can give you an example. I was at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and there was an Egyptian guide. He was talking to some people from Europe, some white people, and he said these Africans in America, they want to claim that they are the Egyptians, which is not true, right? That he told these white people that. But what was so interesting is right there was the bust of Amenemhat of the 12th dynasty. So I just pointed at him and I told those people, okay, so look at this sculpture. Does it look like an African or does it look like this guy? And they just cracked up laughing. I mean, everybody knows, but like I said, the golden rule, they're in possession of the land, so they can make the rules. And there were some people who, of all different types of backgrounds, who made claims that the people in the Ministry of Antiquities didn't like. So they just completely, they told those people they can't even come back. They can't come back to the country. So they mean business, but there's no way in the world that they can pull the wool over the eyes of the entire world. I'll give you another example. Like, if you go to in my opinion, the best temple in all of Egypt, which is the best temple in all of Egypt, is the temple of Hatshepsut in Luxor, and she was one of the ladies who actually became Pharaoh. When you look at the ancient pictures of when the tombs were first discovered, that she's painted as black, but when you go there now, all of the color is stripped off. Same here on the Giza Plateau, right up the street from my house. If you go right up the street right there to the tomb of Merce Ankh, when her tomb was discovered in the 1920s, Merce Ankh was painted as black. But now if you go to the tomb, all the color is stripped off. Another thing, right here on the Giza Plateau, there was an engineer, a vizier, like a big intellectual, influential person named Hemiunu, who designed the Great Pyramid, and he had other intellectual engineering related achievements. Now, when they found his tomb, when they found his pyramid, you could see a statue of him right there in a part of that pyramid. There was no paint on it, right? But now they've reconfigured that statue, they've reconfigured it, and now they have it in Germany somewhere featured as a fat white man. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I could go on about this forever, but how the way I'll sum this up, and I'll just say, look, Godfrey and his buddy, they were Akbar. They're very, very ignorant. I don't mean it pejoratively. They were just ignorant. And Bassem Youssef, whatever his name is, he was exploiting their ignorance. But the Arabs have been trying to pee on the legs of the world, basically, and tell us that it's raining, and we know it's not true. But not only with Kemet, but with so much of our history, particularly us Black Americans. Think about this to my Black Americans. We are 12% of the population in our country, and we punch well above our weight. Our influence is far beyond our 12%. The Hispanics outnumber us now, but our influence is still greater than theirs. The Hispanics are simply trying to acquire power by brown nosing the shit out of the whites. Same with the Asians. The Asians, the Hispanics, they all try the same tactic. Brown nose the shit out of the whites. But if you look at us, from even before slavery, during the times of slavery, all the way up until now, we have been hugely impactful. So I'm going to leave on that note, but first I'm going to read this last comment. Taharka Nagas. My main point is, what did the ancient and even contemporary ancestors say? Well, that's a topic for a different discussion. We can return to that tomorrow. I'll go ahead and read the rest of your comment. Now contrast that with people that know their history, like the Chinese, where most are familiar or have some knowledge of the Chinese classics, just as the Japanese are familiar with the knowledge of their history. I beg to differ about the Japanese. I don't think the Japanese have knowledge of their history in the same way that the Chinese do. But today I wanted to show you all that video and just kind of watch it with you. My internet went out, and so it looks like we lost the video. But like I tell you, Yusuf Bassem is a first-rate liar. And I've said before, Yusuf Bassem, the guy, the famous Egyptologist, the one who clearly, while he was saying they wanted all of their antiquities back in Egypt, he was shipping off antiquities to some foreign country. He was never acquitted. He just magically no longer was on trial, right? He was, but that guy, I forget his name, but him, Yusuf Bassem, all of these big mouth Egyptians around here who want to tell me that the Pharaonic culture did not originate in Sudan. But the very first state, the very first state of Kemet down there in Nubia. But all of these Egyptians, and I know some of you have probably been on this thread, contact me on YouTube, on Facebook. My email address is there. Contact me. I will be very happy to debate you in front of the world. But you don't want that. You don't want that. So I'm going to leave with that note. I could go on about this, but what I'll do instead, I'll just return tomorrow with a different topic, and we can take it from there. The reason I ask is so we stop listening to liars, Arab or white, or black for that matter. That's why I ask, what did the ancients say? Yeah, you're exactly right, but if what I was talking about is not the evidence, not